Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at how to take your Fusion 360 model and take that and put it into Substance Painter for texturing. So main reason you might want to do that is Substance Painter is a dedicated texturing and rendering software. Fusion obviously is a CAD package. It's got okay rendering, so it's not bad, but in terms of if you want to get like really fine good detail for like product visualization, ideally you want to take that over to a different piece of software. So what we're going to do is, this is a model I've done in a previous tutorial. If you want to know how to model this, I'll put a link to the video here. So what I'm going to do is just to show you first few things that I did. So I did edit this slightly. Okay, so what I did was I went into my bodies and I just made sure that all of my individual bodies were named and I made sure they were separate, because originally when I modeled this in the original video, some of these buttons I joined and it was all like one body because it wasn't an actual physical like working product. It was like just like a nice 3D model. So all I did was make sure I split the parts. So basically anything you want to texture needs to be a separate body or a component. That's fine. So what you need to do then is go to File, Export, and you want to have FBX. Okay, now it will say that you need to do cloud cloud translation for that, and go on export, and it takes a little bit of time. I've already done that, so I'm not going to bother. It takes a couple of minutes to do that. So I'm going to show you what happens first of all if you just come straight into Substance Painter. This happens. So I'm going to show you again now. So I'm going to File, New. I'll bring in my Game Boy model. I'll change this to 2K, and I'll go on OK. And what happens is it brings out in a really weird orientation. And unfortunately, you can't reorientate your model in Substance because that's not the kind of thing the software does. It's more about the texturing, adding your materials in. The other thing that happens is if you go to Edit and Bake Mesh Maps, which is what you need to do to be able to texture properly, and I change that to 2K, and go to Bake Selected Textures, okay, so now that we have baked textures, we've got this really weird sort of pattern going on, and that's because we haven't done any UV unwrapping. So if you drag a material over, you still end up with these really strange artifacts on your model. Now you can see, if I go up here and go to 2D only, that's showing like our texture maps because Fusion doesn't create them. So I'll go up to 3D only, and we'll just minimize that. So basically what we need to try and do is figure out how to, one, reorientate that. Now if you were just trying to get this straight from here direct to Substance Painter, I guess what you could do is rotate the model around, but you'd still have the problem with the weird artifacts in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to export it as we've already done as an FBX, and we'll jump over to Maya. Now if you've got an education account with Fusion, you will get Maya free. If you don't have an education account, I'm assuming you should be able to do the same with Blender. Disclaimer, I've used Blender a little bit. I haven't used Blender for unwrapping, but it's the same sort of software, 3D modeling software that lets you model and unwrap. So if you haven't got access to Maya, you could do it in Blender instead. But if you've got an education account, Maya is the one to go to. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Import, and I go to my download, so I've got it. Oh, it's the wrong thing. So I'm going to go to File, Import, go to my downloads, and then there is my Game Boy. And you can see straight away, it comes in and it's reorientated wrong like it was before. So what I can do, if I go Object, select all, if I hit E for rotate, J, I can then bring that up into position. And you can see kind of weird things happen and these weird colours have appeared. That's because there's like no texture IDs or texture maps attached to them. So what we can then do, I'm just going to select all of it. And first of all, as you can see, by the way, you've got Game Boy under here. If I click down here, you see we've got all our parts named here. Okay, so what we'll do, I'm going to select all of those. Up here, go to UV. And I'm going to just click on Delete UVs first, like that. Now, I'm going to go to UV Editor and bring this up. Now, I normally do this on a dual monitor. But obviously, for screen recording purposes, I'll put it over to the second one. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit and bring this here so you can see what I'm doing. Oh. Okay, so the point roughly, like a really dumbed down version of why you need to UV unwrap objects, is because one, you dictate how the material interacts with the model that you've created. So how, if you want to wrap it around in a particular way, particularly if you can have like distorted parts. It gets a bit more complicated if you're doing like organic things like characters and plants and those sorts of things. but also how you dictate the texture density. So like if you've got like grain, how big is the grain going to be, and that sort of thing. So this is our UV editor. I'm not going to do any massively complex UV editing. I'm just going to do automatic unwrapping in this video. If you want to have a look a bit more at unwrapping, there are other tutorials of my projects going into a bit more detail about unwrapping as well. So what I'm going to do is, just to make sure I get them all, I'm going to select one at a time. And for now, I'm going to uncheck that box because I don't want to have that little checkerboard yet. I'm going to go to Create and Automatic. And you'll see what happens if I get rid of this for a second. Is these planes here have appeared, and it's basically unwrapping how the material it thinks how the model should be. And I'm just going to click off it, and you see automatically now, because the map's appeared, that weird colour has disappeared. Realistically, if you're doing things properly, you would do camera based and you'd cut your own seams and things into the model. But for the purpose of trying to get this over to Substance Painter to show you the best way of doing it from Fusion, we're just going to do automatic, which for a lot of things works quite well. So we've done that main body. I'm going to go to the screen. I'm going to go automatic. I'm just going to keep working our way down. Create an automatic. This is the benefit of making sure that you've named all your parts as well. If you're camera based, just Control Z to undo, or if you want to do that, go to UV shell, select that, and hit delete. And see which one did I mess up on. That one. So I go to Create, Automatic. Okay, so if you just click through all those, you can see that I've got those UV unwrapped for each model. If I select everything, the problem we've got now is that they're all on top of each other. Okay, so I'm just going to make my UV editor bigger. So it's a big old mess at the minute. What we need to do, okay, if we go to UV shell, select everything, right click, go to modify, go to layout. Now it might take a little bit of time to figure out what's going to go on. So you see what it's done now is it laid it out so nothing is overlapping. So this is then where I can turn on my checker box like that. And if I move it over, you'll see what happens if I just move that to my other screen. What we're looking for is that all those boxes are similar sort of sizes. Okay, so that basically means that when we use different materials, they're all going to be the same sort of scale and size as everything else as well. So that has done what we needed to do. So I'll bring it over to you, see what it looks like again. So I'll turn this check off. There we go. So everything's unwrapped. I can just close that. I'm going to give that a little save just to make sure. So let's go to Save Scene, go to Desktop, and save over that. So last thing we want to do is just put a texture map ID to it. So I'm going to click on each one, right click, go to Favorite Material. It doesn't matter which one you click, but I just click on the blend. It appears up here, and I'm going to give that a name. And again, just work your way down. Okay, so all we've done, as I said, we've unwrapped everything. I've just given everything a texture ID or a color ID. So now what I'll do is I'm going to give that a quick little save. Then we can export that, go to File, Export All, go to my desktop. I'm going to go to, call that Game Boy Render. So now what I can do, so I'm going to close down and come back to Substance Painter. And this is what we had originally, so it was oriented the wrong way and we had these weird artifacts on it. If I go to File and New, and let's go to Desktop and I call that Game Boy Render. I'm going to change this to 2K. Okay, so first of all, it's now the right way round. Second of all, if I then go to Edit and Bake Mesh Maps, change that to 2K, bake selected maps. So you can see the one we had before where it was the wrong way around and we had all those weird artifacts on it, we now don't have that, so we've got our model incorrectly up over here in our texture set list. We've got all our parts with all our names that we gave them. So if I was to grab a material now, drag that over, very easily we can now start to texture our model. So that is how to take model from Fusion 360 and put it into Substance Painter for editing. So ideally, if you've got an educational license, go Fusion to Maya to Substance Painter. If you haven't got an educational license, I'd say go Fusion to Blender and then over to Substance Painter as well. Hopefully you found that helpful and interesting. Any questions, please either leave a comment down below or email me at designwithsimon@outlook.com.